Tonight, Aquaman and his friends find a bunch of dead bodies, and yet for some reason, they can't stop cracking one-liners. Brian Hitch's JLA asks me to do the impossible, which is remember whatever the hell happened last issue. And Batman and Robin Eternal publish their final issue. Will the Robins triumph over evil? Yeah, probably. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 239 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and it's a fifth week. Oh boy, the last fifth week of the entire show. That's some sort of milestone I'm sure I could gush over for a while, but for those not familiar with fifth weeks, it just means I don't have a lot of comics to talk about. This is the week that is made for annuals, and in this specific case, people who weren't able to meet their deadlines for the rest of the month. So we have only 4 comics to talk about. However, you may notice that this episode is not 4 comics length. It is a little bit longer than that. No peeking ahead, but I did a thing. So first let me tell you the comics in order that I'll be covering it in the show, because why even bother trying to do alphabetical for 4 things? We have Justice League of America, Omega Men, Aquaman, and Batman and Robin Eternal. Final issue of that series. If you haven't been keeping up, I wouldn't suggest starting with the final issue. Go back 26 episodes ago. What would that be? 216. Go listen to that one. Beyond that, what do I have for the rest of the show? Well, I had an idea, and that idea half worked. And I'll explain what it is when we get to the thing. But basically, once I'm done with Batman and Robin Eternal, I'm just going to kick it over to essentially a little fireside chat. Just a little bit of time where, since every other episode after this is going to be packed to the gills with me trying to get through as many comics as possible, I just want to sit down and talk and just go through some of the stuff I learned over the course of this show. If that's the sort of thing that interests you, great, cool. Tune in for it. If it doesn't interest you, suck it up. I'm going to be doing it anyway, and I want you there. Don't you make any excuses on me. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. I don't think I have anything else to say, so let's go ahead and jump right on into Justice League of America. JLA number 8, written and art by Brian Hitch. So last issue we had Superman who was taken captive by Rao. He pushed Rao's entire space cathedral up into space and crashed into the moon. We open up this issue, everyone is looking around like, wait, what just happened? Where's Rao? And it's like all of his followers are freaking out. And then we cut over to the moon where we see it's a giant shipwreck, and Superman and Rao are just in the punching match of their life. So Superman goes after him, ends up tackling him off the moon back down to the earth. They crash through the Himalayas and cause this super massive crater. And as Superman just keeps on laying down, he's like, no more lies. This ends now. And when Superman finally is done beating up on Rao just stands up and he's like, you done? I mean, you've hurt me on a physical and emotional level, but here's the thing. I am connected to all of the followers on Earth. Everyone that I've converted here, they're giving me their life energy. The fact that you just beat the ever-loving piss out of me and I'm still fine, do you know how many human beings had to pay that price? And we cut over to a panel of a bunch of dead people out on the streets. And he's like, you can't beat me. If you break every bone in my body, you're only hurting the people of Earth. So what are you going to do? And Superman's like, and he just freaks out a little bit. And Rao just dares him to fight back, as now he's the one who's leading the charge. We cut over to the Foundry, which I think is just Star Labs. And we see that Cyborg, Silas, and this other woman here who I think introduces herself for this issue as Anissa Williams is like, yeah, we're putting the plan together. It's a whole thing. It's 2 Kryptonian fights. We're picking up earthquake signals as they're punching it out. So we've just got to move quickly. And we cut back over to the fight, and Superman's not putting up a fight back. He's getting the ever-loving crap kicked out of him. And Rao steps up. He's like, I've broken a couple ribs. One of your lungs collapsed, and I just burst your liver. Like, you ready to give up? What's up now? You ready to die? And then all of a sudden, he gets impaled from behind with Aquaman's trident. And we see Aquaman and Wonder Woman shown up with all of the weapons of Olympus, and Wonder Woman jumps in and just starts stabbing Rao over and over again, just like, oh, you think you're a god? I'm going to show you what it's like to mess with a god. And as Aquaman goes over to Superman, he's like, tell Diana to stop innocent people getting hurt every time she does that. And Aquaman's like, oh, gee, Diana, please stop. And he's like, what? And then she gets blasted by Rao off to the side. He's able to lay on a significantly more powerful heat vision than Superman can. So Wonder Woman's just doing her best to fight back as best as possible. We see that Batman and Cyborg are working to do something that's going to take another 2 minutes. And Diana's like, hey, we need to do something. We're not going to be okay here. And Superman, coughing up blood, is like, don't worry, there's a plan. Cut to an hour ago when he was talking to Rao, or Rao was monologuing to him. Batman apparently sent out a hyper-specific frequency he knew Superman would be listening at, but Rao would probably not be. And he said, here's the deal, Superman. We've got a plan. We're setting it up. We're doing whatever. You need to keep him busy for an hour. Can you do that? Theoretically, it's probably about an hour later. So we cut back over to Batman and Cyborg. They're like, all right, it's as much as we can do. We got to launch the plan now. So Batman calls out to Superman, says that we're ready. All of a sudden, boom tube opens up. They push Rao through it, and like they have to tackle him through it in order to do it. So they're all now on the other side of this boom tube. And it turns out they're at a power plant in Metropolis. And Rao's like, whatever it is you're planning, like, I'm still able to feel the connection. Like, no matter what you do to me, it's going to kill other people around here. And so we then come back half an hour ago, and we see that Batman's making a deal with someone. He says, all right, if you survive this, then you're free to go. Cut to now, we see that that's Parasite. Parasite jumps out of nowhere, latches onto Rao, and immediately balloons up to, like, huge sizes, like twice the size of Bane. And he's like, oh my god, there's so much energy in you. So they're saying, all right, we're trying to drain as much power as possible, or like we got to make sure there's as much power in there as we possibly can, or else this plan isn't going to work. And Superman's like, no, you can't do this. They're innocents. He's draining the followers too. But it turns out that even with Parasite draining all this energy, it's not enough. So Wonder Woman comes in with the lasso and ties up his hands, Parasite's hands, to make sure that they don't let Rao escape. Aquaman's trying to funnel some sort of electricity, it looks like, over onto Parasite as well. Like, they keep on giving him more and more power. Superman eventually jumps in, and he's like, oh, you take whatever you can from me, as long as we get the energy here. And Cyborg calls back to his dad, like, is that enough? Are we good? Do we have the plan running? And Silas is like, no, we don't. Like, there's not enough power here. We need a miracle. Cue Barry Allen and the rest of the Infinity Corporation or whatever showing up. It was stuck in the past before. Now they just show up here, and Barry's like, oh, wait, we're at the power plant. Cool. And he runs over, and Batman says, Flash, don't ask questions. Feed the Speed Force into Parasite. And he's like, okay. So he does that, and Parasite's like, oh my god, this is the best I've ever eaten ever. So now that he's the size of a kaiju, Silas is like, all right, there's enough power. Go ahead and do it. And I'll admit, I don't fully understand the plan here of like what they're doing, but it seems that Cyborg has managed to string up the power plant, and using the energy from Parasite that was drained from Rao, they are chaining it into a giant EMP emitter, which is going to disrupt the connection from Rao and all of his followers the same way that other random individual had when he got his heart restarted. As they're doing this, the scientist people from the Infinity Corporation, one of them's name is Vincent. I do not remember these people at all. They're staring, saying, oh, this is it. This is what the Forever Stones showed me. This is where their end begins. Whatever that means. So Rao is still struggling. Superman says, all right, do it now. They launch the EMP, and it I guess clears the whole world of Rao and his connection to his followers. And everyone's just like amnesiac. They're like, where am I? What's going on? What's happening? And Rao's like, I can't feel them. You've taken them away from me. I need powers. And he looks over at the Infinity building and it's like, oh, the stones are here. I'm gonna go get the stones. And as everyone else is recovering from the EMP, he just walks into the middle of the room where all the stones are. Theoretically, I guess he's absorbing their powers. All the scientists are freaking out like, ah, crap, what do we do? Justice League, we need you in there. And everyone starts moving except for Superman. And Wonder Woman goes over to check on him, and she turns back to the group and says, he's dead. And that's the issue. That's where we leave off. Superman's dead. Seems to happen pretty often nowadays. Look, we got 2 more issues of this book. I don't know what we're building to anymore. I thought this was it. I thought the idea of like, oh, Rao with all of his followers and yada, yada, yada. I guess we do have that issue of time travel that we established last issue where he was low on power and he's like, oh, screw you. I need to take back over in the past or whatever. Things didn't work out for me in the present. Like, all right, if we're setting that up and we're setting up like a weird stable time loop thing, I guess fine. But I just don't feel like that's the end. I don't know where this ends. I don't know what counts as a satisfactory ending here anymore. So, yeah, it's not bad. It's just not as good as the other issues have been. So, honestly, I'll probably just say a 7. 7.5 feels like it's even a bit too high. So, could be better. We'll see where it ends up. But, yeah, this book is big. I'll give it that. Omega Men number 10, written by Tom King, art by Barnaby, Bagenda. So last issue was the big pop of the war. Callista had destroyed all the Stellarium on Vrorl, and now everything has gone to hell. So this issue picks up with Kyle, who has become the Omega Lantern. He's got his ring back, and he is fighting on the side of the Omega Men on the planet of Karna, which is the giant cat person planet that Igor's a part of. And we see that like he's already been in the fight for a good 3 weeks now. And his ring is like barely giving him a charge, but he's like, come on, all right, just give me a little more. I can do it. And as he gets himself up, he joins in the fight. And this issue is kind of just to show the relentlessness, like the hardships of this fight. So like at the first charge they go out, there's a bunch of dock robots that they're fighting against. So many of the Carnians, whatever their race is called, are just dropping dead one after another as they try to fight the bots, because they are essentially like from the jungle. They don't have a lot of high technology or anything to fight. They fight with their claws. But then Kyle comes in and he just starts absolutely kicking ass, destroying all these bots. And we cut from day 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. And as we wrap up the week, after a lot of hard fighting, and you see just how exhausted Kyle is, he gets a call from Callista who says, hey, this may have all just been a diversion. We just got word there's this whole other huge front down on another continent. We got to head over there now. And Kyle's like, I need to rest. You don't understand what it's like to use these powers. And Igor's like, the more we rest, the more of my people die. So we're not going to rest. So they head out. Day 28, we see the fight is continuing. They're down on the field. And the Viceroy is on the line on a, I don't know, Zoom call, whatever, with the chairman of the Galaxies Committee. And this guy's like, I don't even know who the hell you are, Viceroy, but you are the one who was in charge of the planet Vorl. You were the one who lost us our Stellarium deposit, and now I've got billions of planets breathing down my neck, not wanting to become the next Krypton. So what are you going to do about this? And he's like, oh, well, we're currently out fighting. We're doing whatever we can, but we're meeting some opposition from the native forces and the Omega Men. And the chairman's just like, okay, let me tell you about the opposition you need to be keeping in mind here. If you don't do this, literally every star in the sky is going to come down on you, and we will like absolutely try you for your crimes, and your last moments and before you're murdered by firing squad is going to be the shame of your failure. Like that all of this is going to be you just there begging for your life. And we see that Kyle and the Omega Men are successful. Like they're going out, they're doing this stuff, they're winning fight after fight, and the Viceroy is just getting more and more desperate as the chairman is just basically telling him, like, if you fail here, you will be killed. Like, end of story. So that took another few days, but we cut to day 29. There's a little party going on. Everyone's celebrating. I always forget his name. Primus, I believe. Primus. He goes over to talk to Kyle away from the rest of the party. And he's like cheery. He's like, hey, look, everyone looks so happy. The princess is happy. We did it. We got everything we wanted. And he takes a sip of his drink. And then he just starts like breaking down. He's like, I killed 4 people today. I'm a pacifist. I always meant to be a pacifist. I hate fighting, and I killed 4 actual blood and flesh soldiers today. Like, I who could have seen this happening? You know, we're all Omega Men, and all that changed. All my non-violence, whatever, changed when the princess showed up. The princess and all the other Omega Men and her plan, and I loved her, and of course you love her, and all this other stuff. And Kyle's just sitting there, just zoning out. He's just having a drink, 1,000-yard stare. So day 30, we see that the plans are continuing. They're like, all right, now that we pushed the Viceroy's forces and all that out of the these areas, these continents, whatever, there's only one place that they're probably going to have the ability to land, and that is in the Garden of Alpha, which up to this point has been viewed as sacred, so he would never dare to land anything there. And Callista's like, cool. That's where we break them. That's where we like show them that we're not backing down. So day 31, they come in, they start landing, unloading all their troops, and the people of the planet start attacking. And it's this whole big attack pattern, and we again have this mirroring thing that was done in the last issue, where the first 4 panels show from a third-person perspective of the Omega Men fighting. And then the last 4 panels show a first-person perspective with Kyle in the middle, just in silhouette. And then the next page is basically the exact same thing, except now the days are ticking on. So now it's day 32, 33, blah, 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 all the way up to day 40. And on day 41, Callista stabs her sword into the final soldier and says, there, it's done. We did it. I did it. And then we did it again. So as she's happy that they finally have taken out the forces, we cut back to the Viceroy, who's on a ship, and the guy, one of his little assistants, is basically like, sir, I'd love to tell you that, like, there's an easier place for us to go to get Stellarium, but, like, there isn't, and we've already sunk so many forces into this. And the Viceroy just grabs this little tiger statue that's on his desk and starts beating the crap out of this guy as it says, may it please Omega, over and over again. So we see yet again another like feast is happening to celebrate the win, day 42. And now Tigor's the one talking. He's like, yeah, you know, everyone eat up, enjoy it. We did good. We did whatever. But also, this is just the start. Because this is no longer a fight for Karna. Now that the Viceroy knows that it's not just going to be easy to walk in here and take it from us, he's going to try his luck at every single other planet in his little portfolio, all 5 other planets that we've seen. He's launching a war on the entire Vega system, and we're going to have to fight him on every front. So that's a good thing, though, for the Omega Men and for Callista's plan, because what it is now allowing is if every single planet in the system is under attack, all of the planets will now band together against the Citadel. So they are essentially taking down the Citadel, and it's all part of Callista's plan. So Kyle is just like, all right, well, you know, I'm going to go rest. Hope you don't mind. And as we hear that the rest of the party is celebrating and they're, you know, enjoying themselves, enjoying this before the war, Kyle just walks off into the wilderness, seemingly not wanting to be a part of all this anymore. So that's the issue. Not as great as the last issue. I think last issue was the peak, but this is also super solid. For anyone who read Tom King's Mr. Miracle, he does a very similar thing with the fighting in that issue, where it just just the single panels representing days passing or weeks passing just really drives home the futility and like the exhaustion of it all. And I think they also did a good job of making clear, okay, this was the plan. Like, we defend them on the first place where they go, and then he is to direct his attention elsewhere, but like everywhere. He's going to hit everywhere all at once. So no, it's a solid issue. I think honestly, I think I'm going to give this one a 9. I really do like this issue. It's keeping up the pacing, keeping up all this stuff. The chairman of the Galaxies Committee, or whatever his name is, I'm going to try to remember this, but it's actually a little bit of a shock who that character ends up being, but that doesn't come up till issue 12. So sorry if I forget it, but just know that that's a thing that you should look into if I don't mention it in issue 12. So yeah, 9 for this. Aquaman number 50, written by Dan Abnett, art by Brett Booth. So last issue, we got a whole bunch of setup since Dan Abnett was basically just taking over. They're setting up a embassy for Atlantis on dry land. Mera is taking the Aquaman look, and as we find out in this issue, calling herself Aquawoman. And there was a creature that was springing up from sources of water and killing people brutally. That's where we pick up this issue with, is one of the people who was murdered. And we see that some FBI agents show up, and as the police officer, security guard, whatever, who's there, shows what happened, he's like, yeah, we're measuring the size of the bite wound and all this stuff. And they're like, bite wound? What do you think made this sort of thing? And they make a bunch of Jaws puns and like quote the movie a bunch, until finally one of the FBI agents is like, okay, very funny, fantastic, whatever, but like, where the hell is a shark attack supposed to happen here? And we zoom out and we see we're on top of a skyscraper with just a pool. That's the only way it could have happened. So the cop's like, yeah, I mean, that's why we called you. We figured you guys would have a better idea. And they're like, well, we're going to need to call in an expert. Cut to Aquaman. He is approaching the Spindrift Station, which is the name of the embassy that is going to be up on the surface world. And Mera's coming in and is just like, all right, is everything ready? Are we good? And Garth's there, and he's like, yes, I did a printout for a press kit, and I Googled that yesterday because I didn't know what a press kit was. I also didn't know what Google was yesterday, so I've been learning a lot. And, you know, Aquaman comes in and says, hey, can we get some privacy, whatever. And he basically comes up and says, are you sure you want to do the Aquawoman bit, Mera? Like, I'm not going to force you into this. And she's like, no. It's marketing. It's presentation. It's all that stuff. And I don't hate it that much. So, yeah, whatever. No problem. But Aquaman's like, cool. By the way, we might have to postpone the conference. And she's like, excuse me? No, that's not a good thing. I got dressed up in this garish suit for nothing then. And he explains the monster thing that was killing people. Because it comes from water, the press has already just decided that it's an Atlantean monster. And she's like, that seems a little bit not necessarily true. And Aquaman's like, well, that's what they decided. So I'm going to go take a look at it. The FBI agents are coming in to brief us now, and we see a good 2-page spread at the Spindrift Station. It is massive, and according to the helicopter pilot, it only took like a week to build. So absolutely incredible. And as they come in and land, they are welcomed by Mera and Aquaman, and immediately the FBI agents, both women, by the way, are oogling and ogling at Mera in her Aquawoman costume. And they're just like, wow, you're aquamazing. Put a pin in that. So they go inside and they offer up basically scuba suits and are just like, yeah, all right, it'll allow you guys to go down to the lower levels of our embassy for us to talk. Don't worry, like, it's safe, you're totally fine, whatever like that. So they go down, and the FBI agents say, yep, there have been 12 murders. They're all over the globe. The only consistent thing is that there was water nearby when they were killed. And it's like it was using the water as a doorway. And the other agent's like, dude, is this something that you people have the tech for? And Mera's like, what do you mean, you people? And she's like, I mean, just, you know, you control water. Is it aqua doors or something like that? And she's like, nah, that's not really something we do. But we've given it the, you know, we didn't particularly try to say Atlantean. That was something the press picked up on. They also gave it the name Dead Water. that's just what we'll be using for the rest of the thing here. So he's just like, yep, so is this your thing, Aquaman? And he's like, it absolutely is my thing. So I will act as bait since it can pop up anywhere at any time. I'll just try to lure it out and we'll get it taken care of ASAP. So we see that he goes back to the pool up on the skyscraper. He puts his trident in the water and is just like trying to focus. He's using his little fish calling sense. And again, the agents are sitting there like, oh man, why do we have to get Aquaman with us when Aquaman's so hot? So Aquaman stands up and he's like, okay, so here's the thing. This pool is full of pool chemicals. Like, nothing should be alive in here. And there is nothing alive in here. But I am picking up on some, quote, new form of water. Something old, dark, and full of rage. And it's a form that I've never seen before. So I tried calling into it. I didn't hear anything, but like, it was just a void. It wasn't what I normally expect. And then all of a sudden, Deadwater just pops out. He just screeches and he's like, boom, there he is. He immediately attacks Aquaman. He goes after the FBI agents. He bites off one of the security guard's hands, and that's where Aquaman's like, nope, no more deaths. And he tackles Deadwater off of the skyscraper down onto the streets below. As they are down there fighting, we see that the news is already taking like, oh, check it out, another Atlantean fight here on the streets. Are they invading once again? And then we get all these people on the streets, opinions or whatever. They're just like, yeah, Atlanteans, they're bad news. Everywhere they go, there's destruction, whatever like that. And, maybe they are good guys, but why does Aquaman keep finding himself in the middle of this sort of mess? And then the news person rightly calls out like, couldn't you say the same about Superman? And it's like, yeah, well, Superman's one of us. He's cool. Aquaman is an other. So we see that he's continuing the fight, and he's like, all right, so you are able to like shapeshift, you're able to do this other stuff, but you heard me calling, so what is it? Why are you so full of this rage? Why are you trying to murder people? Why do you kill? And it doesn't respond. It's a monster, so it just keeps attacking Arthur, and he's like, all right, well, then I'm just going to have to stop you. So the FBI agents come down. They want to see this fight firsthand, and they come down to see Arthur impaling Deadwater on his trident, flipping it over, and it lands in a fountain where it just disappears. It fades away again. And Arthur's like, all right, well, we all know you're around here somewhere. I'm the only one who's managed to get the best of you, and that means you're not just going to run away. You're going to stay here and you're going to fight until I die, right? Let's see it. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden, all the fire hydrants and sewer pipes and all that start exploding with water. It's coming down, raining on top of Arthur now, and he's like, all right, you could be anywhere. And then all of a sudden it pops up behind him, grabs him, and just drags him down into a puddle. Inside the puddle, we see that it is neither land nor sea. It is water of some sort, but it is that unfamiliar water that Arthur was talking about before. And he's like, it doesn't follow all the normal rules of water. I don't know what this thing is. It's not full of any sort of normal feeling that I've had before. It's a new kind of water. And he says that like it's full of the monster's rage and all this other stuff. And as he's beating up Deadwater, as it's dragging him down deeper into this darkness, he somehow comes to the realization that this monster, Deadwater, was turned into a monster by this dark water. And in actuality, he was originally a man. And he's like, well, if that's the case, I can't kill him. I have to try to save him from whatever this void water is. And so the fight continues on. He's dragging down. And he's like, oh, yeah, it also doesn't follow normal water, which means I can't breathe. I'm drowning in this stuff right now. So we go back up to the agents, and one of the agents is like, oh, my God, he's been down there so long. And the other agent's like, he's Aquaman. He can't drown, right? Right? And all of a sudden then Arthur comes shooting up. He gets out of the puddle, and he brings along this other guy with him. And they're like, who the hell's this guy? And it's like, oh, he's Deadwater. He's the monster. We've got to make him secure, lock him up, because he could turn back at any moment. And the agent's like, shouldn't we, take care of him? Wink, wink. And Aquaman's like, I don't think he meant to do this. He was turned into this sort of thing. He is a victim just as much as anyone else. We need to make sure that he is safe, but also make sure everyone else is safe from him. So he's taking him back to the Atlantean thing, and he's like, we're going to do this entire investigation in Spindrift. We welcome other governments to come in and view us and keep us on board. So we all need to find out how this happened. We then cut over to Mara and Garth. The press conference has continued on as expected. Everyone starts arriving, United Nations, stuff like that. And as the press walks in, Mara says like, "Oh, hello, I am Aquawoman, and we're glad to have you here today, and we will fight for all human life, whether above or below the waves." And basically says, all right, well, let's start asking questions, doing whatever. And they basically say like, hey, was that whole Deadwater thing just a publicity stunt? And it's like, no, that has nothing to do with us, but we welcome anyone to help us investigate how it did end up happening. Also, my husband saved the day, so points for us, I guess. And he's like, oh, you see yourself as part of the human race. Aren't you Atlanteans? Isn't that different? And they're like, we're the same as you. We laugh, we love, we bleed, we talk to fish. Oh, wait, you don't do that. And it gets a laugh out of everybody. And then she just starts doing a stand-up routine, but all using like water puns. She's like, oh, yeah, see, we're all in the same boat. But tis. And everyone laughs. And cuts over to the audience. They're like, she's great. She's much better than Aquaman. I like her. So they do a little bit more of like, oh, what are you wearing? She's like, oh, Atlantean battle armor. What about you? Coals. And Aquaman is apparently watching this on the chopper that's returning with Deadwater, and the agents are like, oh, she's doing great. She's doing a fantastic job. He's like, yep, I knew she would. And then she's pumping up Aquaman a little bit in her speech, and the agents are like, oh my God, are you blushing? You're totally blushing. And then they get over to the Spindrift Station. All right, that thing I told you to put a pin in before when they were saying how great Aquawoman looked. Continuing on with the rest of the book as well. Last issue, they had the B team, the people who were not Aquaman and Mara, they were cracking a lot of jokes. And I thought it was for the sake of, oh, haha, they are, the newbies, the outsiders here, and they're just making humor at that. This issue gives all of that humor to these random FBI agents that are showing up. And it never once landed for me. Not a single time did the humor in this book ever work. And it just keeps going. Like every panel is like these agents just like trying out some new material for their Tight Five. And it's like, what are you doing? People have died and you're sitting here making shark puns. What is happening here? It just feels weird. It's a weirdly written book. I don't mind the Deadwater stuff. Seems like a fluffy enough little thing to wrap up while still having the embassy stuff happening. But like, tone it down with the humor, man. It's a bit much. It's just throwing the wrong vibe for me. I guess if I got to give this one a rating, it's like a 7. I'm not huge on the Brett Booth art, and then the writing's also not great, but like, it's at least okay in concept, which I feel like 7, maybe a 6.5. I'll stick with the 7, but yeah, just not a great issue. Just and double long, you really feel the length as well. So big oof. Batman and Robin Eternal number 26, written by Snyder and Tynion, art by Scot, Eaton, Carlo, Pagulayan, Igor, Vitorino, and Geraldo, Borges. So yeah, we open up with a flashback where we are at a bank and we see that the manager has called in Harper Rowe's mom because she works there. And it turns out Harper just showed up here. She just walked into the bank. She was like lounging around in the stairwell, and the manager found her and just like, Miranda, I don't know what your daughter's doing here. It's fine. It's okay. But like, you should take your daughter to school. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'll make up the hours. It's okay. And as they're walking out, Harper's like, he was trying to get a smoke in the stairwell, so like maybe he should be punished as well. And they ask where Cullen is, and she's like, oh, it's fine, I just need to get out of the house. Cullen's left with a Power Rangers tape and a bunch of cereal, so he's fine. And as they're talking, as they're doing whatever, she's basically saying like, yeah, I've got a science fair coming up. I made my volcano twice as big as any of the other kids and twice as messy. And the mom's like, oh yeah, well, when's that? She's like, oh, it's on Thursday. And mom's like, I don't know if I can make it then, honey, I'm sorry. And Harper just pauses and she's like, do you still love us, Mom? And the mom just, on this city street, just like sits down on the ground, invites Harper to sit next to her and says like, why would you say that? And she's like, well, you're working so much and like you and Dad had that big fight. And she's like, look, Harper, life doesn't always turn out the way you expect it to. Like right now I'm working 2 jobs, and like I'm not spending a lot of time with your father because things happened between us and he's not the man that like I thought he was to begin with. But all of this stuff I'm doing in order to help you and your brother because you're worth it no matter what. So you guys can be anything you want. Just remember, I'll always be with you. And Harper's like, okay. So then we cut to now where Mother is telling Harper to kill Cassandra. Grayson's there now, just like, hey, Harper, we already won. You don't got to do anything else. Like we beat Mother. And Mother's like, no, you did what? I can just relaunch the satellites in like 5 seconds and get like a bunch more cities. There's nothing you can do to stop me. In fact, I bet you're all out of that trauma gas, right? So yeah, literally the next one will definitely stick. So Harper, you joining me? And Grayson's like, don't do it, Harper. And Harper's like, hold on, I just need to think for a minute. And Mother's like, no, take all the time you need. Yeah, think about how Batman failed you and how he let Cassandra kill your mother and like all this other stuff and how you need to make Cassandra responsible for the things she's done. And Grayson's like, Harper, don't let her get into your head. And even Cassandra looks up and is like, Harper, do it. And Harper looks down like Cass and she's like, it'll make you feel better, just do it. And Harper kneels down and is like, Cass, look at me. I was never going to murder you. That is not who my mom raised me to be. I just needed a second to look around this place and see where the weak points in the electrical system are. And so she throws the knife that Mother gave her, ends up severing a major cable, and everything starts flashing red with emergency backup power. So Mother gives a command to the computer in order to get the backup generators going. And as it's running, Harper comes over and just starts beating the crap out of Mother. Just surprise attack, punches her in the face a few times. And she's like, you keep on talking about me like I'm some broken little animal. Like I've got a big hole in my life. But like, I've been doing so much better ever since then. Like, my mother knew I was strong enough. She knew I could be better than her. And that's why I'm not taking your crappy philosophy of having to go through this trauma and all this extra stuff. And so as she's about to punch out Mother's lights, Mother pulls a gun and is about to shoot Harper. Cass pushes Harper out of the way, but ends up getting clipped in the shoulder, so she's not doing so hot. Meanwhile, backup generators come online. Mother's like, all right, well, I'm still just going to launch the satellite, so screw all you. You've lost. Yeah, I'm doing this now. And Grayson's like, all right, do it now. And turns out he's not talking to Mother. He's talking to Azrael, who I guess is in the generator room, and just starts slashing everything up like crazy. So once again, all of their communications are down. Mother has no way of firing it off. And Grayson's like, hey, maybe you screwed over too many people. You ever think about that? And she's like, all right, orphans to me. And all the orphan things start charging into the room. Grayson calls in everybody using doors. Now that the systems are down, they can get inside. So the entire Bat family shows up and all the orphans are here. And it's all just a big blowout fight. Harper helps Cass to her feet and just like, hey, look, I'm not sorry for how I feel. I am still upset or whatever, but like, I know that wasn't you. I know that's not who you really are. So they get up on their feet, but of course Cass is still clipped. So when some orphans approach them, Spoiler steps up and she tased them with the biggest taser gun that she could find from Harper's room. So they go out and they start kicking ass. Meanwhile, Grayson gives chase to Mother, who starts running away, but only just far enough for her to make a quick costume change and then get out some electrified swords. So she starts fighting Grayson just like, oh, I trained all these fighters. You think I don't know anything about myself? And then that's where the other Robins all come in. So now it's a 4-on-1 fight. And Mother, once again, just says her MO. She's just saying like, oh, I'll tear down this whole world and make it better, blah, blah, blah. You're Batman never understood, though he should have been able to see what you could have been. And Grayson's like, he did. That's exactly what, like, he allowed us to grow into ourselves and we outgrew him, like we surpassed him in all these different ways. You don't understand Batman, you don't understand Robin, you never did. So as Grayson's standing over Mother, just being like, I am going to put you in prison, you are going to stand trial for everything you did. And Mother's like, okay. emergency code pewter 87, and then all of a sudden the floor starts heating up, and she's like, did you forget that this was an ice castle? I built it over a volcano just in case I ever needed to wipe everything clean. I will be able to get out of here, but you will not be able to catch me, and you will have no trace of any of the stuff I did here. Nanny nanny boo boo. So we see that, like, you know, Red Robin's telling Grayson, we got to get out of here, we got to go. Grayson's like, no, we need to get her when she needs to stand for her crimes. And as she's standing there, we see that Cassandra somehow ended up on the same side of the room as her. She charges in, clearly about to murder Mother. She's like, oh, this is it. And as she attacks Mother, Mother ends up not winning, but she ends up deflecting Cassandra long enough that Cassandra was not able to kill her, and Cassandra even stops and says, I'm not going to kill ever again. But then David Kane comes in, the original orphan, and he has no such qualms. He stabs Mother through the chest with his sword and is like, I gave you everything. I gave you my life and my daughter, and you call me by my name. And he's like, oh, David, you're my favorite son. Look how powerful you are. And basically, he's also got mortal wounds himself. He's not going to be able to make it. So he turns to Cassandra and is just like, hey, Cassandra, you deserve better than me. I'm sorry. Goodbye. And he grabs hold of Mother, dives into the fiery chasm of the volcano. They're both gone. Cassandra yells out no. And everyone's like, all right, that's it. It's officially over. We can't continue on. We got to get out of this place. It's coming down. So they all escape the ice castle. Cullen finally reunites with Harper, tells her all the crazy stuff that he got up to. Spoiler also comes in and is just like, oh, hey, yeah, we're a family party, right? And they look at Cass standing nearby and say, hey, you too, you're part of the family now. So as the ice castle's collapsing, we see the 4 original Robins are standing there watching it, and they're just like, yeah, like there's so many lives were destroyed, and now Mother's empire melts away without a trace. And Damien's like, so we won. Let's celebrate. It's good news. And Grayson's like, do you think that Batman would be celebrating right now? Like, we got to make sure she didn't have contingencies on contingencies. We got to do what we can to try to make sure that, like, something like this doesn't happen. We're Robin, so the job isn't done. Cut to 1 month later, after Bruce Wayne has been returned in the books of Batman, and also, I guess, Robin War happened somewhere in the middle of all that. We see Harper's made her way to the graveyard where her mother is buried, and Batman is there. Bruce is there waiting, and it's just like, hey, I'm back, Harper. And she's like, yeah, well, good. I was getting sick of the robot thing. And they basically just have a talk where Harper chews out Batman, says, you should have told me. Like, I've been around in your main book series for how long, and you just never decided to tell me that, like, I secretly had some origin here. And Batman's like, I didn't know how you'd take it, and I didn't want it to be, like, a bad thing. And she's like, however I took it is my right to take it. Like, you had no right to keep that from me. And she basically says, like, look, I probably wouldn't have been great, but, like, I still probably would have come to you if it wasn't for her. And Batman's like, look, Mother had nothing to do. He's like, no, not her. Like, my mom, my actual mom. She was the one who taught me to always, like, go out and do great things and that I could do anything. And I wanted to do the whole cape and cowl stuff, but, like, I've seen that side of things, and I almost died like 6 times, so I'm reevaluating. And Batman's like, okay, so what do you want to do now? And she's like, I got into college, Technical Institute. I'm going to go there. I'm going to see how it feels to help people from the backside and being able to help people with my talents and skills. And Batman's like, okay, yeah, no, sounds good. Like, Bluebird's always welcome if you want to pick it back up again. And she's like, yeah, you know, maybe, but it's not like you have any choice in the matter one way or the other. So he says, look, Batman, this is my life. Don't forget it. And he's like, yeah, fair enough. So as she walks away, Batman calls out to Cassandra. She was hiding up in a tree. He walks over and just like, look, yeah, you killed this woman. That's something you're going to have to live with, but it doesn't have to define you. You can leave this all behind. And she says no, and she puts up her hood and just like, I'm going to help. I want to join your fight. I'm going by the name Orphan. And Batman's like, all right, Orphan, let's get to work. So one last little segment. Grayson's on top of a building, looking off of a gargoyle. Batman comes up being like, oh, hey, the gargoyle suits you. And he's like, you know, you didn't actually sneak up on me. I'm a super spy now, after all. So they have the talk where Robin's like, you do know you didn't make me Robin, right? Like, I was always going to be some form of Robin no matter what. You just made sure I didn't get myself killed doing it. I hope you understand that, Bruce. And he's like, I have trouble trusting people, and you don't, and you've always been stronger than me with people, and that's why I knew that Cassandra showing up, like, you'd be able to handle all that stuff with Mother. You could face her in a way that only you could, and that would allow you to defeat her. And then Damian comes up. Turns out the whole reason Grayson was here was they were watching a heist taking place, and Grayson kind of got distracted talking to Batman, so they're almost away with $500,000 now. So Batman walks over the ledge and says, this sounds like a job for Batman and Robin. Grayson says, which Robin? And he says, all of them. And they all jump in. End of book. It's a nice ending. I won't lie about that. It does feel a little bit like, not Deus Ex Machina, but like hokey in a way of like, yes, the ice castle built over a volcano, and like 4 different people have the ability to kill Mother at any point, but it ends up being the one that like, who then can also self-sacrifice himself, and we don't have to worry about his oh no, he killed somebody thing. I do feel bad for Azrael because his whole thing was like, I want to kill her, and then he just didn't get the opportunity. But no, I mean, it's it feels like it gets its ideas out there probably like 5 or 6 issues ago. It really says, okay, yeah, no, this whole thing of like, who made Robin, who made Harper, all that sort of stuff. And then this one's just doubling down, saying, no, we understand our points here. We all make our own choices. It's not something where we're bound to this life because we were hurt or traumatized or whatever. We choose to do it. So I think it says something there. I think it's got a good little message and moral. I'd say that this one probably cracks up to an 8. I think it's very well written. Some of the art transitions are a little weird, but you got 4 artists. It's going to happen. So yeah, no, I think it's a solid issue and a solid series overall. The whole 26. I don't think I liked it in the overall sense of scale as much as the original Batman Eternal, but I do think it was better paced, being only half the length. It felt a lot more succinct in what it was trying to do. So yeah, I'll give this one an 8. Hello and welcome to whatever we want to call this. I honest to God, have no idea really what I want this to be. All I know is I've been looking at the rest of the schedule for the remaining episodes on this show, and I've realized that at no point for the rest of this am I really going to have a chance to just sit and talk for a while. Like, even when we get down to the final episodes where I'm going to have the most to say about, oh, we're at the end and yada, 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 all that stuff. Like, I'm going to have to be doing like 30 comics per episode just because of the way I structured it. So I figured because this week only has 4 comics, I could just take some time out of this week's episode and say, all right, I've done 239 of these things. What have I learned? What can I talk about? I will say that for anyone watching the video version, you will currently be seeing a bunch of comic book covers just scrolling in front of your face. These are roughly in order the New 52 releases. So oldest comics were at the beginning, and it'll just keep on going all the way up to the things I have covered this week and will be covering in future episodes. It is the whole of the New 52. It is literally everything that I have said I would do for this show. Not my original idea. I hinted last week that I had a much bigger, much dumber idea in mind. And I did attempt it, which is I wanted to show off my collection. So for anyone who doesn't know what my collection looks like, I feel like you could easily see it on camera, but I had, before I even started this show, the entirety of the New 52 in trade paperback format, which is the whole reason I started this show. And we'll talk about that in a bit later, but I, about 2 years ago, decided, you know what? Screw having it in trades. I have the rest of DC, Rebirth onwards, all in single issue format. I want the New 52 to match. And as of about, 3 weeks ago, give or take, I completed that mission. It took me almost 2 years, but I completed the mission of every single New 52 comic in single issue format. And my idea for this segment was I was going to pass them onto my desk. A camera would be aimed down at my desk, and one by one, I would show every single cover of my actual physical copy. There were so many things that went wrong with my little trial run, and the trial run was only 200 comics. So many things went wrong, I immediately had to pivot. So now you're getting just some pre-rendered, scanned-in photo versions of the covers, and you'll just have to imagine the fact that I am lovingly looking at them over to my right now as I look at all of my completely full long boxes. By the way, if you don't have them in sleeves, the New 52 will take up pretty much exactly 6 long boxes. So use that information as you will. I'm realizing I don't think I've actually really said my origin story since episode 0 of this show, where I gave a brief little rundown. So I guess for the sake of the audience, people who may or may not want to know me better, I will indulge you. So I did not start collecting in 2011. In 2011, I remember I went into a bookstore in my mall, and they had a comic rack. And on that comic rack was the new comic book day, free comic book day, I should say, New 52 sampler issue. As saying oh, check it out, this is coming in August. You can't wait. And I leafed through it and said, wow, that's cool. And then I didn't do anything because I was just graduating high school. I had no extra spending money, so couldn't do anything with it. Fast forward 4 years, I did have spending money. I moved into a new apartment that was just down the street from a comic shop, and I walked in, and this is going to sound downright blasphemous, but I didn't immediately know I wanted to go for DC. Growing up, I was much more of a Spider-Man kid, but when I walked in, I did my research beforehand, and I found that this period, Marvel was marketing that they were about to launch their all new, all different stuff. It was coming up right after, I think it was Secret Wars at that time. And then DC, obviously, they were in the middle of Convergence at that point, but they were saying, oh yeah, New 52, that's where the last jumping on point was. And it was a whole universe relaunch, and you just got to go back to 2011 for it. And I was so dead set on starting my collection that very day that I said, I'm going for DC, and the rest is history. Not actually, though, because I'm explaining it all. So I got Batman and Justice League that day, and almost immediately after finishing up Batman, the first volume of Batman ends with the Court of Owls storyline. And the Night of the Owls, the big crossover event across all the Bat books, is what happens immediately afterwards. So I'm doing my research, and I say, so if I want to get the whole story, I have to not only pick up the next volume of Batman, but I also have to pick up volume 2 of Nightwing, volume 2 of Batgirl, volume 2 of Teen Titans, volume 2 of Batman and Robin, which means I also, I guess, should pick up all the volume 1s of these series as well. And it was in that moment that I realized, oh no, I'm going to be buying everything, aren't I? Now, a lot of you, at least people that I intersect with in my lifestyle, are going to say, no, you don't, you stupid idiot. Why would you need to get everything? That's so extra. Why would you need to do that? I suspect that a certain number of listeners are going to share my mindset of the completionist collector idea, the mentality that goes into the same thing that made Pokemon appealing growing up, the gotta catch 'em all aspect. Why have just an incomplete run when you can have all of it? So yes, for the next 4.5 years following that, I managed to collect all of the in-universe New 52 DC Comics titles. That As I was saying, it should have sounded like there were about 15 asterisks pinned onto that, because nothing about this is easy. If I have to share any one thing, not about the show specifically, but about collecting comics, if you want to set yourself some guidelines, some ground rules as to what comics you collect, you need to understand that the moment you set those ground rules, whatever publishers you follow will immediately test those rules out with edge cases you could never even imagine. So when I say in continuity, well, that sounds easy. That sounds super simple. And for instance, for the New 52, they made it very easy because everything that was part of the New 52 had a big old branding across it that said the New 52. But then what happens when we get to the DC YOU era? What happens when we get post-convergence where continuity is a bit more fast and loose, and maybe some things did happen, maybe some things didn't? Like, how do you decide at that point? And the answer is there is no answer. You just have to go by gut feeling. Something like Injustice was not part of continuity. It was its own separate Earth, its own reality, based off a video game. I didn't deal with that sort of stuff. I have it in omnibus format just because I wanted it, but I didn't get it as part of the New 52 stuff. Things that didn't get collected in trades are also just as fun, because then you were like, oh, this series, Green Team... Sorry, is that name? Yeah, Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, Clarion, and Infinity Man and the Forever People. None of those got collected into trade format. I had to get all of those in single issue format. And then, and this is purely a me thing, there is the difference between a book, a series book trade, and an event trade. So for instance, one of the earliest events in the New 52 was The Culling, which crossed over between Legion Lost and Teen Titans, and maybe Superboy. That one, if you got Teen Titans, the book, like Volume 2 or whatever, Superboy Volume 2, and Legion Lost Volume 2, you would have every part of the Culling event except for Part 1, which was a Teen Titans annual that did not get collected in the Teen Titans book for some reason. Why? I have no goddamn idea, but they didn't. The only way to get that in trade format is to get the Culling event book, which then means you're doubling up on all those issues across all those 3 series. There are no good answers here. You need to figure out what works for you and how you want to do it. For me, I just got the single issue because it's not like it's a hard get. Nobody likes those books. It was super easy to find and it was not a problem. So yeah, just know what you're getting into. Anyway, fast forward 4.5 years. It's 2019. I have been collecting weekly comics as part of Rebirth ever since Rebirth started. So I now have roughly, 3,000 comics, give or take, just from Rebirth onwards. And I finally collect the trade paperbacks. I finally have all the New 52. And I look at it and I say, I have not read even a tenth of these. What am I going to do? And I look at the calendar and I realize, the 10th anniversary of the New 52 is coming up. What if I turn this into content? And lo and behold, the Not So New 52 was born. It was just me wanting to read through my collection. And I think that's valid. I think that's a decent enough reason to do it, as good as any other reason. I will say, though, that the reason for doing this show has changed over time. While it may have begun as me just kind of wanting to read through my books, very early on I was hit with books that I didn't want to read. I didn't want to waste the time of sitting down and talking about because they're just not good. And I want to talk about that as well. But as I was getting through those books, I realized this show, I would like it to be something that people can gather around, like a book club sort of thing, where we all go back and we read the New 52. But even early on, I knew I wasn't getting the views to be able to justify that. So instead, I decided in my mind, in my heart, this show was going to be a historical time capsule sort of thing, where nobody is going to willingly go and read through all the New 52. They don't want to take the time to go do that. If for whatever reason DC manages to take down all the digital copies or something like that, then my work, this show, would stand as a monument, would stand as the record of, no, this was here. We can say that all this happened, and we don't have to worry about it being lost to time. That's kind of where I ended up at. Is it valid? No, not at all. It's just my own little peace of mind that I've gone with. But at the very least, it's something that I find is interesting to look back on once it's all said and done. Because, like, that's 3,000 comics. Over 3,000 comics that I've just sat down, read through, recapped, given my thoughts on, and moved on to the next one. Over and over, week after week, never missing a single week. And that is, I don't know, that's something special. I am happy to have done it. So, another thing I noticed going through this show, something that was a little bit, I don't want to say flattering, because I know it wasn't about me. But every once in a while, as I was doing this, I would stumble across people who had the same idea. I don't think I inspired them. Maybe I did. Maybe there were a few people who were like, oh, wow, yeah, I'll join in along with you. Like, no, I doubt it, but maybe they exist. But there were just people who were like, look, New 52, DC started doing their digital publishing, like day and date matching with the comic shop, pretty much around the time of New 52 starting. So there's a good digital record of everything existing. You can go back and find everything pretty easily with very few breaks. And I think that it is a testament that I do come across these people who have these ideas, who do this same sort of stuff. There's a thread on the official DC Comics Discord that I keep up on. He was doing it 11 years after the fact. But I always love chiming in there, seeing what's going on there. There's a couple people who I've already talked about on this show, Hawkman, and I don't remember his YouTube name, but his Reddit name was Logical Patient. Both of them did the same sort of thing, doing rereads through the New 52, and I don't know, it's a strange sense of community. It's a strange sense of, this was always a crazy idea, and yet multiple people independently came to it. And is it always going to be good reading? No, of course not. The entire works of Ann Nesenti exist. But, like, at the very least, it's something that we can all say we did, you know? It's something that, it almost feels like a trial by fire sort of situation. Like, congratulations, you're part of an exclusive club. And, you know, there's tons of people who were already reading comics back in 2011 who probably were reading the whole thing as it came out. And they'd say, haha, you think that's special. I did that back when it was coming out. And to that person, I say, shut up. Shut your mouth. You know, let us have our fun at the very least. So I don't know how that turned into an accusatory thing, but yeah, no, I don't know. It's so weird because, like, I Google, like, New 52 read through and stuff like that. And yeah, you see stuff from, like, when Rebirth first started, or like right after Death Metal ended. You see a couple little spring ups there for people who are like, oh yeah, let's go back, let's do all this sort of stuff. But it's just crazy to me how often it keeps coming up independently. There's got to be something there. Even if it's not a good idea, there's something to it. What else did I want to talk about here? One of the big things that just amazes me is that this whole project took 4.5 years. More than that, even. I mean, August would be 5 years, so 4 2/3 years, 4 3/4, whatever the official number here is going to be. It's taken so much time, but, like, I don't feel the time itself. I don't know how better to word that except by explaining it further, which is to say, when I started this project, I had just gotten into a new relationship with this girl I had just met. I was living on my own. I worked overnight shift in a warehouse, and I hated my job. Like, all of these just things in my life that were not bad per se, but just, I don't know. I was not in a good mental state when it started, but I was so determined to make this work, to commit to this project, that it just kept happening week after week after week. No matter how bad my mental state was at any point, I managed to keep this deadline and keep this show going. And then slowly things just started changing. I switched out my job. I started working from home, day shift. I am now working directly with comic books week after week, which I love. That relationship with the girl I had just met, I am now married to that woman. Like, I'm living with her. We have our own home. There's so much that is different from when I look back at the beginning of all this. And it's not like the comic books themselves had anything to do with it, but it's this experience, the idea of like change over time where, yeah, the comics more or less stay the same. They remain a constant, but everything else moves around it. The entire world shifts beneath it as I'm moving through this. If you had told me what my life would be at the end of this show compared to when it started, I would not believe you. More importantly, I wouldn't believe you that I finished the show. That seems like a Sisyphean task. I suppose that's another thing I can mention. This isn't the first time I've tried this kind of show. I've actually tried doing a comic show before this. It was when Rebirth first started. I was like, you know what? I already know I'm going to be collecting all of Rebirth. What if I do a show that is just going through the week by week of it? And I didn't think I could do it solo. I tried to get a co-host going. Co-host stuff kind of fell through, and so the whole show kind of fell through after a while. But because of the remnants of that show is what drew me to this YouTube channel, the Comics from the Multiverse YouTube channel, which ostensibly did the exact same show idea. They started the exact same thing. And I got into that, and that led me to say, hey, I've got this project idea. Can I publish it on your guys' channel? They said yes, and that's been 5 years. Almost 5 years. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why the passage of time is so bewildering to me. It's so incredible to me that, like, what seems like this show has been going by so quickly, whereas everything else feels like it's been moving so slow. Like, everything took forever to happen, but the show itself is just done in the blink of an eye. It's crazy to think about, I guess, is the long and short of it. What else? Is there anything else I really want to talk about here before I get all deep and philosophical, if I haven't already? I mean, talking about the passage of time seems like it's already up on that kind of pedestal. No, I guess I could talk about what I want to do next, because that has been something that's come up in comments before. I hear people, they say like, oh, hey, New 52, what are you going to do after you're done? And some people come with suggestions. Some people want me to continue on into the Rebirth era. They want me to cover that sort of stuff. Short answer to that is no, for multiple reasons. First and foremost is, my channel that I am on, Comics from the Multiverse, the main show that's published, they started with Rebirth. They started at that time period, and you can go back and watch from the beginning of their show. I'm not going to step on those toes, and it's not something I even want to do. So it's not even like a turf sort of argument. It's just a nope. I scouted out the New 52, and that's as far as I ever wanted to go with it. So, unfortunately, no, Rebirth is not an option. I have considered potentially like only picking up on the comics from Rebirth that they did not cover, just to be able to really flesh out everything else. But I don't think I could do that as like a regular show, because that basically means I'm just going to be picking up the scraps and just doing that forever. And that's the other part of it, is I don't think I can do a show that doesn't have a definitive end date. Like, that's part of why the New 52 was able to be something I could continue on with, even when things were getting tough in my life, was that I knew it wasn't forever. I knew that eventually I was going to hit a point where this is it. I'm done with it. So, no, I think I'm going to be sticking away from that sort of thing once I'm done with this. And honestly, I'm probably not going to be doing anything at all for at least a little while. But my one idea that I keep coming back to is I really want to do like a deep dive. I really want to do scripted content
and a deep dive of kind of this period, kind of the New 52 era, maybe bleeding over into the Rebirth era as well, because I just find something so fascinating about that period. For anyone who doesn't know the behind the scenes stuff, new top dogs came in around 2010. That's where Dan DiDio and Jim Lee became co-publishers. There was new editor-in-chief. Like, everything got shaken up pretty hard in 2010. And that was when DC was like, okay, the MCU exists. We got to hop on that. Let's corporatize everything now. And from that point on, for the whole New 52 era, like, you hear these creatives talk about their time there. It sucked. It was miserable. It was not a good time to be working there. But the things that were done during the New 52 and the Rebirth era are simultaneously so defining, because it's when the DCEU was taking off. It's when it felt like a lot of people were becoming aware of things like Harley Quinn and other stuff like that. It felt so era defining, while at the same time it feels so succinct. It feels so much like New 52 to like 2020 is its own section that can be completely cordoned off from everything else, and it's its own story. It's its own complete thing. And I kind of want to just take a deeper look at that, take a look at the different aspects of it. I don't know whether or not that would be continued on the Comics from the Multiverse channel. I might start my own channel for that sort of things. And for anyone who's interested in that, please comment down below and I will gladly share with you the channel if and when I get it started. Because I am passionate about this stuff. I think that's the thing at the end of the day that always gets me, is that anytime that I tell people I have read through the New 52 and they are comic savvy enough to know about the New 52, they always meet me with the same phrase, which is, why? Why would you do that? Why not read good books? And I get it. I understand. It's not like it's... I know that a lot of the things that I read are not A-tier material on a good day, let alone like B or C. But I don't... like, it's just something that... to take an entire era, to take an entire block of a company's history. I mean, DC Comics is what? It's coming up on 85 years old, I think, this year. No, it's going to be closer to just 80, I think. But regardless, they're coming up on these big anniversaries, 90 years, 85 years, stuff like that. And to take 5 whole years out of that and say, I don't want to read any of that, is baffling to me. Like, none of it, not a single bit of it is interesting to you, especially when the things that happened in it determine the storytelling practices of the stuff you do like later on. Do you think we would have the Absolute line by Scott Snyder and Absolute Batman and all that if we didn't have New 52 Batman for him to work on stuff there? You can draw a direct line from A to B of how we ended up there. But people just want to pretend that the start of the line wasn't there, that we can just ignore that. You can't. I guess this is where I get all deep and philosophical as we're coming into the final minutes of this scroll. I am passionate about these comics, not in a way where I will defend them with my life, not in a way where I'll say, actually, you're all wrong, the New 52 was genius, but I'm passionate in a way that historians are passionate about history. They recognize that horrible things happen. They recognize there are periods of history where not a lot of major interest happened, but they still feel the need to document it. They still feel the need to say, this was here, this happened. Because to say otherwise is just short-sighted and... I don't want to say optimistic, but it's like a bad version of that. It's looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. It's this idea that, like, we only need to focus on the good things that happen. No, you don't. Everybody is the sum of both the good and the bad things that have happened to them. That's no different from DC. That's no different from this show. Have I read some bad books on this show? Absolutely. Do I regret reading them? No. because this experience, this show, has been so much of a shift in my life. It allowed so many different things to happen that I'm happy to have done it. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing whatever my next experiment with these comics are going to be, what kind of form that's going to be, how long it's going to take to get there. But I think that there is something special about this stuff. And I'm happy to have been able to do this show. And for whatever minor mark I can make with my name here to say I was here and I read these books, I'm proud to have done it. And thank you for joining me along the way.
And that's it. That is all the comics that DC Comics published this March 30th, 2016, along with that little extra something for you there at the end. Hope you enjoyed. If not, don't tell me, because it'll break my heart. Anyway, what have we got next week? Next week, we are moving into the final stretch here. And I say that because one particular event is starting, though I kind of can't spoil it. I don't know. It's weird dealing with spoilers in this show because, like, the stuff happened 10 years ago. But at the same time, if you're keeping up with this as if it were releasing, I don't want to tell you what it is because you're going to see it next week. But just know, next week marks a big thing starting. That's vague enough for you. Anyway, what are the comics we got? We got, in roughly alphabetical order, Batgirl, Batman Beyond, Detective Comics, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Justice League The Dark Side War Special, Midnighter, New Suicide Squad, Superman, and Swamp Thing. Strangely enough, out of those, 2 new number ones, which is Dark Side War Special and Bloodlines, neither of those are the things I was talking about. I don't think either of them are literally like, oh man, the next big thing is here. I don't even know what the hell a Bloodline is. I know it was a 90s event. I remember that being a thing, but like, if you told me, oh yeah, the plot of Bloodlines is that we follow the lineage of, I don't know, the Spectre throughout all of history, I'd be like, yep, makes sense to me. Sounds like a valid event. But apparently we're doing it again. So whatever Bloodlines is, we'll handle that next week, along with everything else. However, I don't want to waste too much time at the end of the episode here, because I did just talk for like half an hour straight. So I'll just go ahead and wrap this up with a, hey, do you have any comments on any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, or on that whole long diatribe that I went on for like half an hour? Share me your thoughts. Let me know. There's a comment section down beneath this video. And also there are other places like a subreddit or a Discord or a Patreon. All of those places are valid and you can probably post stuff there. Maybe. I don't know what the UI is going to look like when you're watching this. You could be watching this in 2058. Maybe none of my words make any sense. What the hell is a Patreon? That hasn't existed since the 2020 war of free money. I don't know. I don't know anything about the 2050s. Anyway, yeah, really don't have anything else to say, but thank you so much for watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.